So I'm going to tell you part of my story, and mainly about Anne Frank. She was my best friend. That's in the beginning and in the end. And in the middle, I tell you about three, I call it miracles. I have a little sister, she's 12 years younger as me, so she's little. And she survived 2 concentration camps. And that is in the middle, in the whole story. And I think it's quite interesting. My sister lives here in the country, near Tel Aviv. She has, at the moment, today, this Shabbat, there was Bar Mitzvah, and I couldn't go because I was sick last week. She has 4 children, and you will not believe, she has, at the moment, 23 grandchildren. So that's not bad, and I'm very happy I could help to save her. But that's not right. She saved me and I saved her. Because I couldn't say in the concentration camp, that's it, I have no strength anymore, I want to die. No, I had to be with my little sister. She was born 1940 in midst of the war. And we were, when she was very, very small, in the camps. Okay, that's my sister. But we have to begin with my father, that was born in Germany, in Hanover, and he was brought up in an all-assimilated Jewish family. And in the first, thanks a lot, in the First World War, 1914-18, he was sent as a German soldier to Poland. And then he already was an economist and a journalist. He was not so young anymore. And in Poland, he, for the first time, he was a single child. He met these big, big religious families. And he was so, how do you say, he liked it so much that when he came back from Poland to Germany after the war, he went to be a religious man. He got a very good job as an advisor to the Minister of Domestic Affairs in the German government before Hitler. And he would not work at Saturday because now he went to be a religious man. And Sunday, Saturday would come, would see what came in with the mail, would go to synagogue. And Sunday, all alone, he would sit in the German office and work. Okay, but that stopped the moment Hitler came to power, and the whole government had to step down, and with them my father. But he, as a Jew, was not taken back. And then he understood he has to leave Germany. I was then a single child. I was 3.5 years old, and my mother and me, with my father, went to England. England sounds very good, there are no concentration camps. In England he got a wonderful job offered with Unilever. But the moment, you know Unilever, Taster's Choice coffee and so on and so on. But the moment he told them that he cannot work at the Saturday, at Shabbat, they said, goodbye, we don't need you. And then my parents could go or to America, or in the other direction to Holland, or to this country then under British mandate. And they did the wrong thing, they went to Holland. But who could know 1933 or 4 what will be very, very quick afterwards. In Holland they rented a very small 3-room apartment, and there, in that where we lived, my father opened a little office. And the purpose was to help all the refugees, he was sure the Jewish refugees that will come from Germany to Holland. He took in a lawyer, also a refugee, and my mother, that was a teacher, went to be the secretary in that little office. First week in Holland, mother takes me where? To the grocery shop. And there we met another lady, also a refugee, with her little daughter. And it was Mrs. Frank with her daughter Anne. First week in Holland. It came out, we lived entrance next to entrance. And several days later, when mother brought me to kindergarten, I didn't know anybody, I didn't know the language, I wanted to go home. And then I saw that little girl from the grocery shop, I saw only her back. She made music at Little Bells, and when she finished with her music on the Little Bells, she ran in my arms, and that was it. From that moment, we were good friends. And through us, our parents, and we lived entrance next to entrance, so we did everything together. All Jewish holidays always were in our home. By example, Yom Kippur, you know what's Yom Kippur? I would find there, my mother wanted to fast. We had now a religious home, and that with 12 years you have to start to fast. So till I was 10, 11, I was sent with sandwiches to Frank family. I would find Mr. Frank and Anne at home, and Mrs. Frank and her older sister Margot, 3 years older than Anne, would go to synagogue and fast. And Mr. Frank and Anne would fix the food. I would eat with my sandwiches and go again to synagogue. One day we didn't go to the Franks, but we did go to the Franks and not in our home, 31 of December. Not a Jewish holiday at all. But it's not forbidden to have a little party, and the Franks had 4 couples also invited, my parents also. Anna and me, we were at a non-Jewish school, at a Montessori school, so there was vacation. And I could play with Anna the day before, the day after, and sleep over. And at night, at 11:45, we would get a donut or something, and that was it. So we really everything did together. Even vacation, Anna came often with us. I couldn't eat there, it was not kosher, but she would come to our home, vacation we would take her, and so on and so on. Look, the houses were quite different. My parents finished university. Mr. Frank was a businessman, a very, very nice man. Really, my kids were crazy with him. You know, did you all read the diary? I hope so. If not, you can do it still. And Mr. Frank was the only one that survived. And he very often came to this country with his second wife to visit. And my kids liked him very, very much. Every night he would drink beer. My father never drank beer. And I didn't know it can stream over. So he always was joking with us. He would put a little in his glass, he would put a little more, but he always stopped in time. And that is the only nice thing I remember of him. Mrs. Frank, look, I didn't meet her after the Holocaust, so I was a little girl. I cannot tell you a lot about her. Every girl had a profession at that time, also Jewish girls. But in Holland she didn't work, so I don't know what she learned at all. I have no idea. She was a very good housewife, and that's it. Cannot tell you anymore. The Margot, the 3-year-older sister, she was something special. Every mother would like such a girl at her home. She was very obedient, excellent at school, and very nice looking. And Anna and me, we were exactly the other way around. Anna always wanted attention. And to get attention, she could do something, please, please don't try. She could take out her shoulders out of the socket. And if you couldn't see it, but you would hear it, it would go by knack, 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 knack. And everybody would look at her, and then she was really very, very happy. She also had always a notebook with her. We were at a Montessori school, and there was no homework. That was a nice thing. But we had, after so-and-so time, we had to go out in the garden for the breaks. And Anna tried to stay inside, took out her notebook, would shield like this, and would write and write and write. And if somebody dared to ask, what are you writing? What was her answer? Not of your business. So we don't know what she was writing. Look, the famous diary, she only got 3 weeks before they went into hiding. So it was not that. But Anna also left us very nice little stories. And, you know, I had the little book in Dutch. I still have it, 50, 60 years. But I found it in English not so long ago. And I was looking Saturday at home. There was one story, I really was amazed to see it. There was written Anne Frank, 15 years old. That will say she was already in hiding. And very short, it goes like this. Why are we not nice with poor people? And if by accident we hurt them at their feet or so, we even don't say always sorry. Look, a little girl, 15 years old, in hiding, about what is she thinking? I was amazed, really. I don't know if I would have thought about these things. Wonderful. Okay. And then we really, everything we did together. And my mother always would say about Anne, God knows everything, but Anne knows everything better. But then we come to 10th of May 1940. We had a 5-day war with Germany. The big German army occupied Holland in 5 days. And the Dutch couldn't fight anymore. The old city of Rotterdam was burned out, and the Germans let the Dutch know tomorrow it's Amsterdam, so they gave in, and that was it. Again, in the beginning, it took a little time till things changed. They wanted the Dutch to like them. And look, in Poland, the first day when they occupied Poland, it started with the laws against the Jewish people. And in Holland, they were not so sure. They knew Polish people don't like Jewish people. And in Holland, they were not so sure. But at the end, we know today, there was a lot of help to Jewish people, but there was much more help to the German people. And what we also know only now, with all the research work, the Queen from Holland, with most of her ministers, fled to England in these 5 days of war. And she could speak to the people in Holland by the BBC. The BBC was enemy, so general people were not allowed to listen to the BBC, but some did. And we Jewish people, we didn't have a radio anymore, because quite in the beginning, all Jewish people had to give in to the authorities 3 things: radio, telephone, and bicycles. So we couldn't listen to the BBC. But today we know that the Queen never mentioned you could or you should help your Jewish friends or brothers. And that's very sad, because much more people would have thought about helping or could have helped. But she never mentioned it. And we thought that she likes all her people equally. I cannot say why she didn't. Okay, so that's very sad. And at that time nobody put attention to that. And then it starts quite quick with all the laws. First, everybody in Holland got an identity card. But we Jewish people got a big J printed inside for Jew. Then we got to wear a yellow star, so we had 2 things to identify us. We had to leave, all the Jewish children had to leave the school. There were open Jewish schools for Jewish children and Jewish teachers only, somewhere in the city. This school was 7 minutes walking for us, but no, we had to leave. We had a very nice, headmistress. She was crying when we had to leave, but she could do nothing. And every day there was a new law. We couldn't buy any more in any shop, only in Jewish-owned shops, and only from 3 to 5. That will say that the Christian vegetable seller could sell everything till 3 o'clock. Then the Jewish shop owner could buy the leftovers and sell them to us till 5 o'clock. We had to be at home at night at 8 o'clock till 6 in the morning. And then the SS, German police, could come with a list, without a list, and take everybody they wanted at that night. Everybody was at home. And so on and so on. Our money. Look, my father was a refugee, so we didn't have money. But he worked with refugees, but now there were no refugees anymore. And I only lately remembered where we did live from these years. My father knew a Christian Italian man that he made ice cream. And now the ice cream was made in our kitchen, and he sold it in the street. So we had a little bit money to live with. And even the rich people, the whole money went to a Jewish bank, Lippmann Rosenthal, and they couldn't take. Everybody could take every month only a little amount. So if you wanted to go into hiding, you need money. You cannot go to a family you never met before for 1 year, 2 years. It was, some people were more than 3 years, and you don't pay them. They have to buy food. And look, we all had ration cards. But if you are in hiding, you don't have a ration card because you are not existing. And then, how can you go into hiding? So only people that look that they have money left or somewhere, I don't know, could really go into hiding, or they had family members or something. So it was not so easy. My family couldn't go into hiding for all other reason. First thing, we didn't have money. But I come to this immediately again. Mr. Frank, that also only lately I saw in one of the books, why had he money to pay? He was in hiding in his own office. And so at night, or in daytime, I don't know, he made the office work. And so he had some money. That was for them a big help, and for him it was luck. And at night in 1942, the Germans would come and take a whole family. And you couldn't do anything, and you hoped. Look, we didn't know. There was no television, no rumors. There were rumors. But rumors you cannot believe always. And we didn't know what will happen, and people hoped they will stay together, they will work hard, and that's it. And later it came out that people that were taken already, in the beginning, were allowed to write a postcard every 2 weeks with 25 words. And if you are somewhere in Germany and the old lady is already dead and the baby is already hungry and dead and daddy is working very hard, you cannot write to your family members in Holland what's happening, because then this postcard doesn't arrive, never. So the weather is wonderful and we are healthy and that's it. And so we really didn't know what is going on. And Mr. Frank started very silently and fixed a hiding place, but we didn't know. These were things you never could speak with anybody, because the Germans could torture you, and then you would tell things you never would have told to anybody before. Mr. Frank also very often worked at Sunday. You know, the Anne Frank house today, the big museum, is in the office of Mr. Frank, where he was working. And very often, if I was lucky, Mr. Frank took me also with Anne to the office. Big fun. We would take water, put on the people in the street. We would play with the telephones. We would play with the stamps and so on. I liked it going there. But 1940, my little sister was born. I was exactly 12 years old. My mother dreamed of having a big family, but as you see, it didn't work like she wanted. And now, Sunday, Anne and her sister would come to our home, would look how my mother makes a bath for the little baby, and then very happily we would walk, all three of us, with a carriage. And that was always fun. But now we come to the year 42. We have the end of the school year. Anne and me were 1 year, the 7th grade, in this Jewish school. We had to go from the elementary school. And we have the big vacation. There was a little festivity in end of June. And beginning of July, I want to go over. We lived next door. I want to play with Anne. Till now, we were playing in the streets. That was much too dangerous now. And I ring, nobody opens the door. I ring for the third time. They had a tenant. He lived under the roof. So very slowly he came down and opened. What do you want? I come to play with Anne. We have vacation. Ah, you don't know? The Frank family left for Switzerland. So today we all know they didn't leave for Switzerland. They were in hiding in her daddy's office in Amsterdam. It was much too dangerous. They were not allowed to go with a train, and you cannot walk from Amsterdam to Basel. I believed him at the moment because Mr. Frank's mother lived in Switzerland, and every 2 years she came to visit, and I knew her very well. And so they are on their way to Switzerland. They left a note to look for the cat, and that was it. I want to go home, and at the way home I met my boyfriend. At this beginning of July 42, Margot Frank was 16, Anne and me 12, and my boyfriend 15. My boyfriend says, I came to say goodbye, I got an order, I have to go tomorrow morning to a working camp in the East. That is always what they told us, you are going to a working camp in the East. They never told us we are killing all of you with gas in Auschwitz, no. And that sounds a little different. But this group, that was the first time that when they didn't come at night and took a whole family, that they sent 400 orders to 15, 16-year-old boys and girls. And that was very hard for the parents, because in the beginning they all thought we are staying together. But now to send a 15-year-old girl somewhere you don't know well, and she got an order to bring shoes for Shabbos, for Shabbat, shoes for Sunday, me who had needed shoes not to work, and to bring 6 handkerchiefs and this and this and this. If the Germans will come again, we will tell them, my son, my daughter works already for you. Isn't that enough? No, it was never enough. And they had to go. And this group of young people, never heard of them again. They all were sent to Mauthausen. Mauthausen is in Austria. Austria, you say? Northwest from Linz. It was one of the worst camps that there were. There you had, stairs, and people were thrown down, and awful. In my whole life, I met 3 people that survived Mauthausen. Anne's boyfriend, Peter, he, after being in Auschwitz, and we come to this, was sent with the death marches when the Russians came nearer. He was sent to Mauthausen. He arrived beginning of May, and the Americans liberated the camp 8th of May, but he was not alive anymore. Mauthausen was something maybe even worse than Auschwitz. I cannot say, I was not there, thank to God. But it was enough also without. Okay, so now my boyfriend has gone, or will go tomorrow morning. I go home, I tell my parents, Alfred Bloch was his name, he has to go tomorrow morning, and the Franks left for Switzerland. Much later I learned that Margot Frank was with this very first group that also got such an order, 16-year-old, and then Mr. Frank already for half a year fixed a hiding place, and he said no, now it's enough. Or we are staying together like it was till now, that's what we thought, and go all 4 of us to a working camp in the East, or we are all going into hiding, what I fixed for half a year. And that's what he decided, and we didn't know. We didn't know about the order, and we didn't know about the hiding place. And then they all together went into hiding in the office of Mr. Frank. I come home and tell my parents, why were we still at home? Look, I told you my little sister was born 1940. We had 3 very good hospitals, Jewish hospitals in Amsterdam, but my mother was afraid to go. The SS could come, could take out whom they wanted every day. So she gave birth at home. I told you she lives in this country, thank to God. And everything is okay, birth was okay, and so on and so on. And now in 42 my mother is pregnant. And what happened was she should give birth again in October 42. So my sister was 2 years old and I 14. And then this time everything went wrong. So first the baby was born and was not alive when he was born, and 2 days later my mother died. And now we had no mother and no protection, because in the year 42, in the beginning, there was something funny, I can say. If you were very, very lucky and you could get an extra stamp in your identity card, it would say, the Germans need you, and in meantime you are allowed to stay at home. One of these reasons was a pregnant woman. When the German SS at night came and he could see the woman is awaiting a baby, he was allowed to leave the family at home. And that was the only reason that we were still at home. And before I said we couldn't go into hiding. Look, a pregnant woman going into hiding, that's not fair. And in our case, my mother died. What would they have done? The Germans would have killed that family and us. So maybe it was luck we didn't go, but that we couldn't know. But so it was impossible. And now there was something else. The day after my mother died, the Germans can take us. We have no protection. There was another reason. Women that could sew the uniforms for the German army, also they were allowed, most of them, in meantime. Everything was in meantime, to stay at home because the Germans needed them. And some other groups, okay, I don't know all of them. And now my father has to try to get a stamp. And we got a stamp. We got one stamp for 2 different things. And without that stamp I would not sit here, and my little sister, not to speak about. It didn't help my father and my grandparents, it helped my sister and me. So what happened was like this. First reason, we arrived in Holland, 1933, with a German passport. A passport is expiring, but no clerk from Berlin will send a new passport to Jewish people in Holland. So no German passport anymore. And the Dutch, you had to, at that time, I don't know how it's today, you had to live there for 10 years. And then only you could ask for a Dutch passport. So we, 43 was occupation. In 1940 they occupied Holland. So we had not this and not that. We got a piece of paper that earlier we were German citizens and now we are without any nationality. And that's not healthy. Everybody needs a nationality. Now what happened was, my mother had a brother in Germany still. He was a law student and he needed a German-speaking university because he was not allowed to finish his learning in Germany. So Holland, he didn't come to Holland, he didn't know Dutch. That would be very complicated. He wanted still to go to Switzerland, and in 1938 he still went to Switzerland. And in Switzerland, in 1942, you could, for a lot of money, my uncle, a refugee, a student, had to lend money, you could buy in one of the South American consulates a passport and buy a passport. There were bought about 500 passports. 20 and 250 went to Poland and 250 to Holland. My grandparents got a passport of Honduras, and my father, my sister, and me got a passport of Paraguay. The Germans knew exactly that we have nothing to do with Paraguay, but they accepted this because they hoped, they wanted a little group of Jewish people to set apart and one day to exchange us against German soldiers, prisoners of war by the English. And also the second reason we got this one stamp was the same, to exchange us. But it worked another way around. My father was not only an advisor to the Minister of Domestic Affairs in Germany before Hitler, he also was chief of the press. And that maybe helped us a little bit. He, before Hitler, could speak in the radio about Palestine. He could write in the newspapers, in the German and in the Jewish ones, about Palestine. He was one of the founders of the religious part of the Zionistic party, the Hapoel HaMizrahi, in the 20s in Germany. And he really wanted to come to this country, but a little later. Nobody knew that Hitler will come to power. And my grandfather also was a very good speaker, a lawyer, and he would go also in what you do before elections, at night going into groups and speak for Palestine. And now there were negotiations in Switzerland, in Geneva, between the English and the Germans to make so-named Palestine exchange lists. But now everybody wanted to go to Palestine. Oh, that's impossible. Only people that had parents, brothers and sisters or children already here could get a place at this lists for exchange. We didn't have this. We had cousins here, but not this very near family members. But the people that made the list for exchange, for the list, that made the list for these people that maybe would want to be exchanged to Palestine, knew my parents and my grandparents very well, and put us without, I think my father didn't even try, because we didn't have family members, put us as so-named veterans at list number 2. And that was very, very important, because a year later, and we come to this, when we were already in a camp, there were 40 lists. I come to this again. And at one night, when the trains came for Auschwitz, the Jewish people have to ask the commandant from the SS, the leader, whom are we sending tonight? Because everybody had something not to go, like us. Then he said, I don't need 40 lists for exchange, I need only 2. And by big luck, we were not at list number 7, but at list number 2. Okay. But in the meantime, I am still at school. At school, every day, less children, and you never knew were they sick, were they taken, or were they really going into hiding. You could not know. So till April 43, I still went to school. At the end, we had 4 children in my class. But we always needed a girl to take care of my little sister and the household. And when girl number 3 was also taken to the camps, I had in April to stay at home. And that took till 20 of June 43. Then it was our turn. The Germans first, they took every Jew from the country Holland, emptied the ghetto, then the city Amsterdam, and we with a special stamp still were at home. We even didn't live in the ghetto. I cannot say why not. We had still Christian neighbors and Jewish that still were in freedom. And now, 20 of June 43, they called it a call-up, a razzia. The Germans, again, no rumors, no nothing, closed all of Amsterdam South, and came with vans with Dutch police and German SS, and went from door to door. They closed the whole of Amsterdam South, did I say? And where they found a Jew, we all at home had also our star. We had 20 minutes time, 20 kilogram we were allowed to take, food and clothes, and to come down into the van. We had a very, very nice Catholic German neighbor. She lived downstairs. She had a sandbox. My little sister, we couldn't go nowhere. To go to a park was forbidden. Coffee shop, everything was forbidden. Jews and dogs not wanted. And so she always said, come down for half an hour, play with her in the sandbox. My father would look out of the window. If he didn't see any German soldiers, I could go down for half an hour, and then we came home again. And this woman, very courageous, when the German men of the SS came, 20th of June, the morning, it was a Sunday at 10 o'clock or so, and then we had 20 minutes and 20 kilogram we could take, and she went to the man and asked him, I didn't see it. And I never heard it from her. When I came back after the war, other neighbors told me. Then she asked him, can I get at least a little girl? And he shouted at her, you, a Dutch Christian, you want a Jewish child? Aren't you ashamed? She said, I'm a German Christian and I'm not ashamed. The poor lady fainted, but she didn't get the little baby. This woman sent us a package later to the camp, and you know, she sent the package. Look, I took books, paper, and pencils. Professors maybe took. We took food and clothes and my prayer book. And this woman sent a book, and that was very nice. It was the only book for 2 years and 2 months that I could read. It was about the very first registered nurse in this world, an English woman, Florence Nightingale. And so that was the only book I had till the end was at the toilet. We had no paper. But I could read it and read it again. And after the war, I went to be a nurse. And I told her, if you had sent a book about teachers, maybe I would have been a teacher. But it was about nurses, and so I went to be a nurse. Okay. A very nice lady. And then we go with the van. We were brought to the railway station, and there the cattle cars were waiting for us. The moment the cattle cars were full, we were brought to the Dutch transit camp to the east. And tomorrow you will not see only one picture, I think, about Westerbork. I don't know why. It's mostly Poland, Poland, Poland. From Westerbork, I think there's one picture or not one. So we were sent to the camp Westerbork. From Westerbork were sent 97 trains to the east. 5 with my family to Bergen-Belsen. That's in Germany, between Hamburg and Hanover. 14 to Sobibor, and all the others to Auschwitz. Westerbork was not the worst of camps. And in Westerbork we had an orphanage. Why do you need an orphanage if you want to send everybody to death? Look, my sister and me were brought to this orphanage because we arrived without a mother. And these children, there were, when we arrived in June 1943, about 200 children maybe. These children were not all orphans. Look, the Frank family went into hiding, and the girls were told, or everybody was told, downstairs is an office, nobody is allowed to hear you. From 9 to 5, when there is the office open, you have to go on socks, you have to whisper. And in the toilet, not to take down the water. After 5 o'clock, Miep, the very fine woman that helped Mr. Frank, came up and would tell them, now you can be a little more free. Okay. But what are families doing if they have a baby or a very little child? A baby is crying once a day, once a week, even once a month. Impossible. People down will hear it because you went into hiding somewhere. The houses have floors, and if somebody hears, oh, there lived an old couple, they didn't have grandchildren, so what baby is crying? They phoned the SS, and they even got, I think, $7 for every Jew they gave in. So it was worthwhile. And now what are the families doing? They have to divide the family. The little children and the babies were brought to farmers. Farmers have not a house with floors. Farmers have a little house. And if the lady, the woman from the farmer wanted to take care of this kid, then nobody in the next house will hear if it is crying. But the German SS people also went to look in the farmers' houses. And then, in the midst of the country, they find a little baby. What to do with it? They brought it to Westerbork in the orphanage. And that's an all other very, very sad chapter. Very often these children came back without parents because the parents were found and the children not, and also the other way around. I knew a very nice couple that came back. They were not found and the children were found. And today in Holland you can meet very nice people and maybe they are our children. Because also not everybody was told that he is Jewish. And so now I come in this orphanage to work with the little children, and she got sick after a week. She got very, very sick. She got an ear infection. Today you get your antibiotics, you go to the ear doctor, and after 4 days everything is forgotten. Antibiotics we didn't get, and there was pus. And the pus started to stream, and she needed an operation, because if you don't get an operation, the pus will go to the other direction, to your brain, and then she would have died of blood poisoning. My grandfather found a friend of his, a very good ear surgeon, and he was willing, under these very primitive circumstances, to make the operation. There was a little hospital, but almost without medicine. And the whole 8 months in Westerbork, she was in this hospital. The operation was made after 2 weeks in Westerbork, but the pus didn't stop. The operation was okay, the pus went on, and this little girl didn't want to eat. It was awful. And if you don't eat, the food was not tasty. But if you don't eat the little you get, and you get weaker every day, I call it a miracle that she is alive. I have to tell what happened in November. In November, my little sister in the hospital, I in the orphanage. These trains, these cattle cars, came every week. There had to be about 1,000 people inside. But sometimes, like us, people had such a stamp, and again we could stay in Westerbork in meantime. Everything was in meantime. And then the Jewish people that had to make themselves a list of the 1,000 people every week, that was very cruel, have to go to this commandant, Albert Gemmeker, and ask him, whom are we sending tonight? And at that night, the commandant answered him, I don't need 40 lists for exchange. I managed this before, yes? I need only 2. So I didn't have to go at this night, and maybe some 6 or 7 other kids from the orphanage. But all the others had to go at that night. And that was one of the saddest nights in my whole life. We had to make a little package with a sweater and some sandwiches, and we didn't know what will happen to them. And then we had a rabbi, he was blessing all the children, but you know what happened. We much later learned they were sent straight to the gas chambers. And so it happened that after the war I once met a very nice a couple that I didn't know, but the girl I liked very much, and every night in the orphanage I gave her a kiss. My sister was not with me, Karula, Sarah, Eva, and these people came back without the children, and I knew about it, so I had to tell them. So we have a lot of this kind of stories also. The orphanage very quick filled again, but now it's our turn, and we come to the second miracle of my little sister. In January 44, the commandant calls all the people to his office that have a passport of South America, North America, or England. And we also. And the people that were still in Westerbork with first and second list for exchange to Palestine. And then he told us, you are lucky people. You are not going to work in a working camp in the east. You are going to Bergen-Belsen, an exchange camp between Hamburg and Hanover. Nobody had ever heard of Bergen-Belsen. And there you have to wait. Everybody will be exchanged to his place. Yeah. We were some 4,000 people. 222 really were exchanged to this country half a year later. But that was it. There were some trying of exchanging us, but then there was bombing, and I don't know, so we couldn't be exchanged anymore. And then they also took only very old people, and so they were afraid not to take people that could fight here, or young soldiers also. Okay, so we were not with them. But now, to Bergen-Belsen were sent not at once, in January, February, March. My turn, and his grandmother, and father and sister. I said my grandfather died of a heart attack, I did say, in November. In Westerbork. So we were sent with transport number 3. We arrived in Bergen-Belsen quite okay. We had not a cattle car, we got a real car with sitting like human beings, a piece of bread. We felt very well. And Bergen-Belsen is not far from the Dutch border. Westerbork is not far from the German border. So we had some 6 hours or so, and that was it. Not like the poor people to Auschwitz, 3 days, 3 nights without sitting, and so on and so on. You will hear tomorrow. We arrived there, but there stood the SS people with dogs like this and were waiting for us. They didn't do anything to us, but since then I don't like dogs, not big ones and not small ones. You never knew, maybe they just want. And they had a rifle, but nothing. And later, when we could compare with other people from Auschwitz, we saw we even were at the beginning quite lucky. By exam, I have no number here. You can see. All the others got first a number. They didn't shave our head. They didn't take away our luggage. That was quite important. Look, what I brought from Holland, it was looking like rugs. Because in Westerbork, 8 months, we only had cold water to wash. And the things were not new. There was 3 years already a war. And a girl my age, 15, is growing and getting thinner. So, okay, but it was mine. We didn't get these striped clothes and the wooden shoes that didn't fit. But what was real important, there was no killing like in Auschwitz. My little sister stayed with me, Grandma stayed alive, my father was also over 55, 56 already, stayed alive at that moment. But now what happened was like this. Mothers with little children were allowed with a van to go the 7 kilometers to the camp. My sister was 3 years and 4 months, so we had to walk. But because of her big bandage, she still had a bandage, and I was not yet 16, we were allowed to come with the mothers and the little children. We came to the camp, we got a big barrack for 200 people and 2-story beds. And father and grandma had to walk and didn't arrive. And I didn't know what happened. After 2 weeks they arrived, but that I couldn't know today, yes? they were not there, and we were alone. And after 3 days, I got sick. I got jaundice. And jaundice, you see yellow eyes. And I was told tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, you have to go to an isolation barrack. My little sister, straight from the hospital, was brought to me to the train with a big bandage, smelling bad because there still was pus, very, very weak because she didn't eat really. I didn't know what to do. I cannot leave her with 200 people I don't know, and I cannot take her. I was crazy. And I cannot say, please be my babysitter. You have 3 children. You were so happy you are allowed to take care of them. And so I didn't know what to do. And then really got helped. I saw an older lady that I knew from Amsterdam, and she asked me, what happened? Why are you crazy? And when I told her, she said, maybe I can help you. And she helped. She brought a far family member, a lady of another city that I didn't know, a very religious Jewish lady. And why do I call it a miracle? Because she had 7 children. 2 boys with her husband and 5 girls with her. And she came and said, your father always helped everybody, now it's my turn. Tomorrow morning, before you go at 8 o'clock to the isolation barrack, my daughter, she was my age, she died 2 months ago here in the country, she came to take my little sister, and a whole month till I was healthy, they took care of my little sister. And that was something, because a little girl, not of your family, smelling bad and very weak, who today in New York will take? Nobody. Also in Jerusalem, maybe not. So it was really, I call it a miracle. And she always came to tell me how she was. And then my father came back to the camp after 2 weeks. So after work, he very often, they were next to us. It was a camp for men, camp for women, a gate between. And sometimes at night they opened the gate and the man could for an hour see the women. Then he had to go to my sister and then to come to me to the hospital. But okay, he was back again. And now the last miracle, and then we come to the end of the story again to Anne Frank. Look, we arrived in this Bergen-Belsen, a huge camp, but empty. There were some 1,000 people maybe, and we don't know. Some had striped clothes, some had a star. They were far away, and we from Holland were brought all at the end. So till this day, I think most came from Poland, but I don't know who they were. And we could never speak with them. By the liberation in April 1945, there were 60,000 people in Bergen-Belsen, and 15,000 still died from typhus and malnutrition. The English liberated the camp and did a very good job, but it was too late for 15,000 people. But at this moment, we from Holland get all at the end, near an open field, near the barbed wire, 20 barracks for the people from Holland. And 1 barrack was already full. 1 barrack was full with Jewish people from Saloniki, Greece. And we came February, March 44. Just to tell you, the harbor in Saloniki was the only harbor in the whole world that never worked on Saturday, because 95% of the dock workers were Jewish. Don't worry, today it works at Saturday and not at Sunday. There are almost no Jewish people left in Saloniki. But now there were people with English passports and they were sent to Bergen-Belsen. The one with the Greece passport also went to Auschwitz. And these people from Saloniki, miracle number 3 for my sister, came with their rabbi. And this rabbi, like a priest that you have, doesn't have always the same community, and he was sent for 2 years to Berlin. And then he was a good friend of my father. And now they meet in Bergen-Belsen. So the man asked my father, what about this little girl with a bandage? And then he says to his wife, maybe you can help and save that little girl. Look, the wife of the rabbi for me had the best job. All these Greece people were now our bosses, and they had all the good jobs. What was the job of the wife of the rabbi? She got from the German authorities twice a week, not every day, don't overdo it, a little bowl with milk, and the milk was for the little children under 3 years. My little sister, in meantime, 3 years and 5 months old. No milk, only water. And you can understand, the lady had 2 children her own, they got milk, okay? The boy was my age, and the girl was 9 years old. So they got milk, nobody asked. But every mother that had a little child of 3 years and a half or 3 years and 2 months went to this woman and begged her, I give you a piece of bread, I give you a sweater, please give me once a glass of milk. And she gave me the milk for my sister almost every time she got. The last 2 or 3 months there was no milk anymore. But in the beginning my little sister got 2 glasses of milk a week. And you can understand, such a little weak girl gets 2 glasses of milk or only water. It's exactly the difference between life and death. And thank to God, till 120 we hope she will be alive. And now we come to the end of the story. There is a big invasion in France. The English, the Americans come from the west to conquer Germany in June 1944, and the Russians came from the other side. The Russians were nearer, they came quicker. And the Germans, the SS, didn't want the Russians to see what they did to all these people in the camps. And they sent, as far as they could, all the people into Germany on very dreadful death marches. The people were sent all to one of the concentration camps, and there were some hundreds of them, or to factories, still to help to make munition to win the war. The people that were real dying, they could stay in Auschwitz. And some of them really were alive when the Russians liberated the camp. And Mr. Frank, look, they were taken with the very last train from Holland, 4th of September to Auschwitz. And the Russians were the first one to liberate the camps, 27th of January. Mr. Frank was alive. He was in a barrack for dying people, but he was still alive. And that Anne didn't know. So he survived. Mrs. Frank also was not sent, but she died beginning of January, as we later learned. Okay, so now we get in Bergen-Belsen. That's very far from Poland. I told you it's nearer Holland, the Netherlands. Every day new people. And these people, they arrived dead. They died like flies from typhus and from malnutrition, or one of them or both together. Look, if you live under these conditions, then everybody had lice. We had always like this 2 barracks, and in the middle, the 3rd barrack, there were the taps of the cold water, and there were no doors and windows, and there in the cold winter, not in Florida, we had to wash ourselves. And if you do that every day, then maybe you will die of pneumonia. And if you don't do it every day, you have lice. So we all had lice. But not only lice at your head. There were lice in the seams of the clothes, and some bigger ones in the wood of the beds. So it was awful. And these people from Auschwitz and from the other camps that came now to join us, they brought lice that were infected by typhus. And so that was the end, so started that so many died. I spoke to a group in America, and one lady afterwards told me, I was in Auschwitz, we didn't have lice. I don't know, I was not in Auschwitz. We got lice from these people, from where they came, they didn't tell us. And what shall I say, if you are so weak, you worked very hard for years, you have no medication, almost no food, and then you get typhus, you almost have no possibility to survive. I got twice typhoid. Typhoid is not typhus, and it was bad enough. I was for a whole year sick. But typhus, I don't think I would have survived. And my sister never did, not this and not that, thank to God. And now, one day we hear a rumor. Everything was full. People died like flies. We hear a rumor. There are coming 7,000 women from Auschwitz. But everything is full. And we see the Germans let build behind us. I told you we were at the open field. Big tents. And there they put these 7,000 women. That was about September 44. In November, a lot of them already died. There was a very cold and windy, rainy night, and all the tents blew down, and these poor women were sitting in the water. And we from Holland, that were nearest by with 20 barracks, got an order, 10 barracks to empty in 4 hours, and 10 barracks stay with us. Peter now had 2-story beds, we got a third one. And now these women are very near, because the barracks were very near. But the Germans don't want us to speak with them, they don't want us to know what they suffered, and so on and so on. So they let build a big barbed wire between our 10 barracks and the 10 we had to give. We hear them. At the top of the barracks were German soldiers with a rifle. And it was not allowed to come near the fence. And they put round straw inside, so we couldn't see them. We hear them, and we hear Polish and Czechish. And these were languages we didn't know. Later we learned, at the beginning, there were between the 7,000 women, 40 women from Holland. I don't know how many were dead already, but them we didn't hear. They heard us, so they came maybe near the fence at the other side, because we were 85-90% from Holland. But so, in February, from November to February, somebody told me, you know, your friend Anne Frank is here at the other side of the fence. And I got crazy. Anne Frank is in Switzerland eating chocolate with grandma. And now she is here, and even worse conditions than me. I couldn't believe. So at night, very cold and rainy night, I try to go as near as I can to the fence. And very careful I call over. And I was lucky, one of the Dutch ladies answers me. And who was this woman that answered me? The woman that was in hiding with Anne, Mrs. Van Pels. I knew her, we were not friends, but I knew her, we lived in the same neighborhood, and both families were friendly with Frank, so we met. And we half a minute only spoke, it was so dangerous. She said her name, and so I said my name. Said, oh, you want Anne? I said, yes, sure. And she only added, Margot, Anne's sister, I cannot bring. She is so weak, and it was very near, it was our own camp. She cannot walk this very little distance, but I bring Anne. And really there I stood and I waited, and after several minutes, a very weak and sad voice calls me, and it was Anne. First thing we both cried, and I said, how do you come here? I hoped you are in Switzerland. And we never went to Switzerland, much too dangerous. We were in hiding in Daddy's office, and we were betrayed. By the way, we don't know till this day who betrayed them. And then I told her that my mother died. She knew about the baby. She was not told about my mother. Miep didn't tell her. And my father was, it was beginning of February. My father died 25 of February. So he was very, very sick already. And I told her. And my little sister was healthy at that time. And Anna answers me, but I have nobody anymore. And that was not the truth, but she couldn't know. Her sister was very, very weak, but she knew some more days, no sister. The mother, I told you, had to stay in Auschwitz, was not sent with the girls to Bergen-Belsen. And later we learned she really died beginning of January, but Anna was sure she's dead. But her father, he was alive and she didn't know. Anna knew that everybody over 55 goes straight to the gas chamber. But it didn't work exactly like this always. There always arrived a group of 1,000 people. They didn't have time to ask, how old are you, how old are you, how old are you? They would look. And somebody could be 30 years old, but he looked very weak and he could not work anymore. He went to the left, and left was gas, but nobody knew. Mr. Frank, I told you, he was not so long in Auschwitz. From September to January, he looked healthy. So he was sick, but he looked that he still could work, maybe. And that, when he arrived, he was healthy. Later, he was sick, and the Russians came. So when he was healthy and he looked like he could work, they sent him to the right. And at that, Anna didn't take in her mind at all, because his age, 56. And he survived. And I was so sorry Anna didn't know, because she thought then that she is the last one of the family. And then you are not doing such a big effort if you know there's no one left. Then she asked me if I can help with some food. Look, there is at this world a Red Cross. The Red Cross has one single reason to exist, to help people in need. We didn't get anything from the Red Cross till February 45. And only we with the passports, the 4,000, I don't know how many were still left, 2,000 maybe. And we got 2 very little packages, like a little book. And we were not used to eat so much, so I had still something left. You had to be afraid it can be stolen, but I had something. And so I said, Anna, okay, come back in 2 days, we will see what I can do. After 2 days or so, I came with such a little thing. Everybody gave me something of the packages, and a glove and a sock. And when I hear Anna at the other side, and Anna, careful, I throw it over the fence. But I couldn't see her. The fence was high, the night was dark. And another hungry lady caught the package, because there were hundreds of them, hungry ladies. She ran away and didn't give her anything. And Anna was so angry, and she cried and she shouted. Anna, we do it still again. I had to calm her down. We did it once more. This time she caught the package, but it was the last time we could meet. We had 3 meetings. And then my father died. I didn't go out for several days. And when I came back to look where is Anna, everything was empty. The Germans moved again in Bergen-Belsen, people. The woman that answered me in the beginning, she died in another camp. Anna and Margot, we later learned, died in Bergen-Belsen, but I don't know where, not next to me. And so I didn't know anymore what is with Anna, and that is the end of my story with Anna. We still, so now my father died, I was alone, my sister, my grandmother was still alive. That I have to tell. When this one exchange was, in July, in summer, my grandmother was at the list. But my father was already sick, and she went to the man of the SS and she told him, I have 2 granddaughters, I cannot leave them alone, my son-in-law is very sick. And by this she didn't go, she could have waited for us here in the country, pity she didn't do. She saved somebody else, but she died a month before the liberation. Very sad, yeah. Okay, but maybe every grandmother would have done the same. So now my grandmother dies end of March. We come to 11th of April. The 15th of April, the British liberated the camp. The camp, we already heard the cannons coming nearer. We didn't know from whom, but they were at the way to liberate us, and that we knew that somebody, you saw it, you know, when the German soldiers had bad mood, it was good for us. If they had good mood, it was bad for us. So we saw they have very bad mood, and we knew these are not the Germans, these are the liberators. But the 11th of April, the nice German people, the SS ordered to come 3 very long trains. 2 of them were liberated by the Americans after 5 days from Bergen-Belsen. But I was in train number 3, and he was liberated only after 10 days by the Russians. And that was a big, big difference, because the Americans immediately very good gave care to the people. And with the Russians it was a little more difficult. And when we arrived there, first we couldn't speak with them. You needed a Russian soldier that knew Yiddish. We knew German. And then they got their orders from the officers also, if they were not an officer. And then they told us, here is a little village near the train, 2 kilometers or so. There you are allowed to stay in meantime. You may throw out the Germans, you may live next to them, what you want. My little sister and me with some other people, we had no strength. When we arrived, everything was full. I couldn't move any Germans and I couldn't move any Jewish people. And we were some 8 or so, we went back to the train. It was awful. We almost couldn't walk anymore. And then the Russians told us, look, here's another village, also very near, at the other side. But there you are not allowed to throw out anyone. They hoisted white flags. You have to find an empty house. And we found an empty house. All 10 of us, or how many we were. But the house of this man we found was not a farmer. And he was the mayor of the little village and a big, big Nazi. How do I know? He had at his wall light green wallpaper with dark green swastikas. I don't have Star of David at my walls. So, you know, he was, how would you say, a Nazi more than necessary. And that man saved us by not knowing. He would have liked to kill us. Oh, wow. I, after the war, visited there, and his daughter didn't want to give me a hand. I don't know, she was afraid I want her house or something. I don't know. It was very funny, the whole situation. But so I know from everybody he was a big Nazi. Why did he save our life? These people that were in the first village, they found in the cellar of these German farmers sour cream and butter and milk and cheese. And they didn't eat for years, and they fell over the food, and a lot of them died, and we don't know, was it the typhus or was it the eating too much? And we found this empty house of the man that was not a farmer. We only found not cooked potatoes. We could cook them, and there you are not dying from. So at least he didn't kill us. It's the first thing. I was so lucky. His daughter, they left. He died later on in the war, but the mother and the daughter were refugees. But she left a dress, so I could have a dress. That was wonderful. Okay, so now we had to live there for 2 months. The Russians took care of us. We were in connection with the other village. And then 2 American soldiers lost their way, and the Russians allowed them to make a long list of the people in these villages. And beginning of July, end of June, the Americans came with vans to take us out. And beginning 1st of July, we arrived back in Holland. We were brought to a castle at the border. And the first people we met were Nazis that the Dutch wanted to send back to Germany. That were the first people in this castle. But they were so ashamed from themselves, they closed themselves in a room and didn't bother us. But other people had very much trouble when they came back. And then we had an examination. I had to be in the hospital in this Maastricht. My little sister with others went back to Amsterdam. Mr. Frank was already back in Amsterdam. And there the Red Cross always published who came back. It were very little people, not a lot of people. And so he visited my sister. And then he came to see me. Took him 8 hours. Nothing worked in Holland, no bridges, nothing. And then he took care of us. So first time when he came, I was so happy. I said, do you know, maybe your daughters are alive somewhere in Germany. In February I met them. I met Anne. I didn't see her, but we spoke. But now we are in August. And he tells me, not his girls, not his wife are ever coming back. They had to die with 1.5 million Jewish children that never did wrong to anybody. We got this little country, peace we don't have at the moment. Maybe one day we get some peace. But I have one question for all of you, not to believe all the lies that are told about us. I don't want to go into politics, but they are told so many things. One Arab is dead, and they say we killed him. And then after a month we see no. But then it's too late. Everybody knows the Jews killed him. Okay, we don't speak about this. I hope you have a nice time. And that things like this will never happen to anyone again. Thank you.